A speaker has not been elected. A speaker has not been elected. A speaker has not been elected.
More rounds of votes today with no results in the House of Representatives. Republican Kevin McCarthy has now lost 6 rounds of votes, even though Republicans have the majority in the House.
Yeah, and his party remains split. So we're going to dig into how the process moves forward from this right here, starting with looking at who is opposing McCarthy. A block of 20 Republicans voted against him yesterday and again today, including Dan Bishop, who represents part of the triad in Davidson County. Now, yesterday, before the first round of voting, he tweeted, "I came to a broken dysfunction Congress to change it. Advancing the long-standing pecking order one notch has no prospect of doing that. Many don't want to change it. I will. Kevin McCarthy is not the right candidate to be Speaker. He has perpetuated the Washington status quo that makes this body one of the most unsuccessful and unpopular institutions in the country. This is not about personality differences or who has earned the position. It is about serving the American people. I will not be supporting the status quo."
At this point, 5 different people have been nominated for Speaker of the House. And at one point today, someone on Twitter summed up the past 2 days with this video, writing, "The take down McCarthy strategy, and you get nominated, and you, and you. Who's next?" UNCG political science professor Tom Little says, according to the House rules, it could really be anybody.
You know, we know by law the Speaker does not have to be a member of the House. Is there a former member? Fred Upton's what I've heard mentioned.
Hold on. The Speaker of the House does not have to be a member of the House.
That is correct. That is correct.
So it could be anyone.
It could be
They
anyone.
could put Donald Trump in there.
There was talk, you know, when the election looked like it was going to be a big game for Republicans and that Trump was holding all the cards. I don't think it was serious, but there were some people floating the idea of making Donald Trump the Speaker. Yeah, absolutely. It's never happened, but there is nothing in the rules or the rules of the House or the Constitution that says the presiding officer has to be from the House. So they could, but I was having this conversation with some colleagues this afternoon. I can't see any Republican, even outside the House, that could unify this party.
So you just heard Professor Little say one name being thrown around is retired Congressman Fred Upton from Michigan. He was known for working across the aisle and is on record saying he finds the idea of Speaker, quote, interesting. But is this a real possibility? A Republican and a Democrat insider on CBS This Morning said it's a long shot, but hey, crazier things have happened.
Fred Upton can go on tonight and say, look, if you elect me Speaker, I won't do any investigations. I won't do any abortion or gay marriage legislation. Support me. And he could get 20 Republicans and every Democrat, because that's one of the things you could give them is no investigations for the next 2 years.
And Joel, you're hearing that could happen.
I think it's possible. Hakeem Jeffries is not in any rush again to help Kevin McCarthy here, but his issues do matter to him. So if there is a compromise candidate that does allow Democrats to protect the things that they care about and forward the issues they care about, I think that is a possible conversation. Also, you got to remember, there are a lot of Democrats in that House Democratic caucus who don't think that the House necessarily works well either. You saw some videos of AOC, other Democrats who were kind of having some strange bedfellow conversations with folks like Matt Gaetz yesterday. And while they don't agree on anything, one thing they do agree on is that that body has not worked the way they wanted it to work.
So after those comments, CBS News just called up Fred Upton and asked his thoughts.
I've not had any discussions or texting or communication with any of the leadership on either side of the aisle. I am in Michigan. I remember being a House member back in the 90s when Colin Powell got a vote. You don't have to be nominated for Speaker. And Colin Powell, of course, would have been worthy. He was a good friend when he was alive, that's for sure. But that's you can be a write-in ballot, and I suppose you could win. But you know, as I watch this mess up on Capitol Hill now, and their 5th ballot now, I'm not sure that we're at halftime yet. I don't think we're at intermission. I think we got a bunch of acts to go. And I think, you know, I was listening to Dave Joyce a little bit earlier. This well could, you know, bleed into next week, maybe even longer. But sadly, yes, constituent services are being impacted. What do you do about particularly the freshmen who don't have an office staff, perhaps? They don't have the ability to actually, if someone's got a passport issue or social security issue, are they able to do that? I saw that Matt Gaetz actually went after Kevin McCarthy, even moving into Nancy Pelosi's former office, because he's not technically the Speaker at this point. So I talked to a committee staff director earlier this morning. He didn't go into work today. they have no business. They can't schedule hearings. They don't have markups. They don't know who their chairman is. They don't know who their members are. They don't know how many Republicans or Democrats are even going to be on the committee. So until this gets resolved, it's really a shutdown. And what happens if something like Iran does something, or international, or even national? We're paralyzed. So this is, this thing has got to get resolved. The sooner the better. But there are sure no white smoke, for a new pope or something like that being sent out in terms of the votes that they continue to cast here on the House floor.
So as the ongoing votes in the House play out, President Joe Biden touted the passing of his infrastructure bill earlier this year by holding a joint press conference with Republican Mitch McConnell in Kentucky. Now on his way to catch that flight, reporters asked Biden about the House Speaker votes.
With regard to the fight over the Speaker, excuse me, that's not my problem. I just think it's a little embarrassing it's taking so long in the way they're dealing with one another. And the rest of the world's looking. They're looking at, can we get our act together? And what I've focused on is getting things done.
At this point, the odds of Kevin McCarthy becoming Speaker are shrinking, at least according to the folks on the political betting site PredictIt. His chances of winning have decreased by 16% since yesterday. Their top pick right now for Speaker of the House, Steve Scalise. The House is expected to meet again at 8 o'clock for a 7th round of voting.
Yeah, until then, Republican leadership says they're just going to be working with the holdouts, trying to strike a path forward.